Hey, good morning. I wanted to make this video, this quick little video that will probably be 30 minutes long when I'm done talking, about something that has been a part of the bridge of incidents for me with my most recent and biggest intention, which was boiled down to be free of all of the fucked up garbage that I picked up from the 80s and 90s, and from not just from the culture of the 80s and 90s in America, but also from my, parents, about what I needed to look like. Unrealistic ideas, or maybe not even unrealistic, but just unrealistic pressure to look a certain way, and how important that was, and all of that. I realized at 40, when I was in the best shape of my life, and really the best looking probably of my entire life, that it still wasn't enough, and that it couldn't possibly be about the outer appearance. It had to be like coming from, it was the mental that needed to change, not the external. And so I made that intention. And there's been a lot of stuff that's gone into that, and I don't want to go into all of that, because I just want to talk about this one specific thing. Because I realized I was thinking about this morning as I was sitting here looking at this thing. I was thinking, man, like, everyone could benefit from this. It's really too bad I don't have some sort of product sponsorship from this company, because I would honestly, for anyone, literally like everyone, if you're not doing this, it might be a good idea to start doing this. If you're somebody that obsesses about things, or if it's going to make your life worse, then don't. But so here's how this came about. Before I tell you what it is, here's how this came about. It's a part of the bridge of incidents, clearly. And while it's a very mundane thing, and it happens so naturally, you'd think it would have happened anyway. For me, it's very clear how these things happen. They just sort of flow to you when you get out of the way. This happened almost immediately after I had a minor mental shift that was major, but it was a little tiny thing, but it had major effects. I had been thinking still, all of this mental stuff had worked itself out over the last few years. But unfortunately for me, through the process of all of this garbage being worked out, I went from being in my ideal physical shape to regaining 30 pounds. And so that's great, because that physical condition apparently was necessary for me to work through a lot of this stuff. And I am truly comfortable with where I am, and was truly comfortable with where I was, because I've lost some weight now. But I was truly okay with it. I just wasn't happy with it. You know what I mean? It wasn't the ideal state for me, but it was really difficult for me because I didn't want to, I just had to kind of sit there for a while being okay with it, because I didn't want to start reactivating all of these thought processes that had just died down, that I had just sort of let go of. But I was like, I don't want to carry this 30 pounds around with me forever, but I don't want to start putting pressure on myself. Like, we have to do this now. Like, this has to be rectified now, because I just, I was like, no, there really isn't any pressure to do this. This never has to be achieved. So it was just this weird sort of mental recalibrating. And I was sitting there in like September, September. And I was thinking, all right, well, I really want to drop this 30 pounds again. But I keep having this resistance to it, because I don't want to do like some hardcore diet and hardcore exercise, just because I don't want to be hardcore about this. Like, that was kind of part of the problem for me. It worked really, really well before. It effectively worked well in reality. It did not work well for me mentally. It was difficult, and circumstances were different in the past, where at the time that was the right thing, but now it's not. Like, I just had this feeling like, how else do you lose 30 pounds? Like, I was like, well, I don't want to be hardcore, but I'm going to have to be at some point here. And it doesn't feel right, so I'm not going to do it today. That was basically where I was. Like, this just doesn't feel right to me in my gut. There's this huge resistance to okay, I'm going to plan out a 1,200 calorie diet and I'm going to go do an hour and a half on the cardio machine every day and get this thing done in a few months. That's my general approach to things in life. And that was my approach to losing weight when I lost 80 pounds a few years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And I just couldn't get myself to that point where I wanted to do that again. It just didn't feel right. And so I sat there in limbo. And one day in September, I was listening to Abraham Hicks. And somebody said something that just gave me a little tiny shift. And I thought, I'm really looking at this in a way that I don't look at any of the successful things in my life. I'm looking at this as there's only one way to accomplish this, and I'm going to have to gut it out, and it's going to suck. That's how I was looking at the idea of going from 150 to 120. And in that moment, I just thought, there's got to be another way. I cannot come up with it for the life of me. I have no idea how a person could lose 30 pounds without dieting or exercising. But there's got to be another way. I just have to kind of let go of this idea that there is a sucky way to do this. It's the only way to do this, and I'm going to have to do it. And so in that moment, I just said, okay, I'm just going to let that go. I'm going to let that idea go. What ended up happening, so just a side note of what happened immediately the next day. And this is just another example of the mundane bridge of incidents, but this is how it happens. The next day, Matt, my fiance, who actually has been like, we both put on some relationship and stress weight after we met. He also has been just dropping that. It's crazy. Men just lose weight so fast. It's so nuts. He started getting smoothies from Whole Foods last summer. He would go get a smoothie like every day. And the next day after I had this little shift, he called me on his way to Whole Foods. And for whatever reason, I was like, you know what? I don't give a shit, because my mind was like out of this dieting, like sort of, I had shifted a little bit. And I said, hey, bring me a smoothie. That sounds really good. Prior to that, it was just like, smoothie is not something that I can really eat. It's just like a waste of calories. It's like, who knows what's in it, whatever. I had him bring me a smoothie from Whole Foods. And it was so good that I just thought, I'm going to go buy a NutriBullet and I'm going to start making these for myself at home. Because then I can like measure what goes into it, and I can, pick the fruit I want and all that stuff. And the smoothie that I made for myself at home was so much better than the one I got from Whole Foods. And I measured all the shit that went into it, and it had like nothing in it. It was crazy. This like giant, the NutriBullet isn't the product I am talking about, by the way, but you should also get one of those. They're fucking amazing. Like this giant, you just like drink it right out of the blender cup. This like 24-ounce smoothie, had like 200 calories. I couldn't believe it. It was like the best diet food I've ever had in my life. And I wanted it. It was like what I actually wanted to eat. See how this works? And so I just was like in a smoothie craze for like months until it started getting cold. And then they were making me too cold. So I had to stop. But that happened the next day. The next day, I just sort of meandered quickly to one of the solutions to the problem, which was a healthy, delicious food that I actually genuinely felt a desire to eat. That happened the next day. Okay. Then the following week, this pivotal thing happened. This pivotal little like incident that changed everything happened, which was Matt said, hey, Matt goes to bed at like 5 a.m. I go to bed at like midnight. So he gets into bed at 5 and he said, you're really flopping around a lot at night. I don't think you're sleeping very well. And I was like, yeah, I don't think so. I think I'm just flopping around after you get into bed because I'm disturbed. Like I wake up, you get in bed, I don't have as much space. I can't get comfortable, So I was like, he kept saying this and I'm just like, yeah, I don't know about that. It was my birthday coming up in like a week. He couldn't think of anything to get me. And I said, hey, you know what? I used to have a Fitbit and I would sleep with the Fitbit on. Excuse me, to monitor my sleep. I don't know where it is, and it's like 10 years old anyway. Why don't you get me a new Fitbit for my birthday? just for the sleep function or some other sleep monitor. And he's like, well, I'll get you the Fitbit. I was not interested in this Fitbit for anything other than sleep. So I got the Fitbit, and what this thing has revealed to me, I mean, it's basically completely destroyed all the concepts I had of my entire physical life. I can't stress this enough. I was completely wrong about everything that I thought was happening physically in my life. Without hard data, you could not have changed my mind about this. I was so convinced. By the way, this is a perfect example of why being delusionally convinced of something does not change objective reality. That is not what Neville Goddard is talking about. Everybody has proof of this in their own life if they're just willing to admit it to themselves. Being delusionally convinced that something is true does not make it true in reality. That cannot be what Neville Goddard meant. We have too much evidence that it's not true. All being delusionally convinced of something that isn't true does for you is change your behavior, and often not leading to the outcome you want. Anyway, that's beside the point. I was completely wrong about everything I thought that was going on with me physically. I was doing the wrong type of exercise for my end goal. My idea of how much energy I burn every day was kind of in the right ballpark, but for the wrong reasons. Like I had the right idea about where I was, but in order to manipulate where I was, I had the wrong idea about how to do that. I wasn't right about what I thought was contributing to how many calories I burn every day, just to, and the purpose of this video, why I'm making this video, and I really freaking hope that some people made it this far, is I was totally fucking wrong about what was happening while I was sleeping. And changing that has dramatically improved my life in so many ways. So, first of all, okay, number one, I didn't know how important sleep was. I haven't been somebody who gets up to an alarm almost ever, because I am self-employed and sort of one of the things that was a requirement for me for any entrepreneurial thing I was doing was that it didn't disrupt my sleep. So I've been under the impression for 25 years that my sleep was like excellent, that I was getting enough of it, that it was a good enough quality, all of that. It just, in my mind, sleeping could not be anything that was an issue in my life. It wasn't until I started monitoring it with the new Fitbit. The old Fitbit, it's funny, I apparently had an old Fitbit account that had data in it. I didn't remember this, but when I set up my new Fitbit, it had all the data from 2013 in it. So it was really interesting. I could see that I had all this data from 10 years ago and now, and I could see that it was the same. So like what's happening now and what was happening then it was basically exactly the same. And the difference is that now they have a lot more metrics that they measure, and they deliver you kind of a report. They tell you what it means. You don't just get like, oh, okay, I woke up 32 times last night, or I tossed and turned for 10% of the time, or whatever. It now tells you a whole bunch of information about this and what that means, and it gives you a score for how well you slept. And I didn't realize that I was only getting a really good night's sleep like 2 nights a month. The rest of the time, I'd be like, well, I get like 6 or 7 hours, I'd go to bed at midnight and wake up at 7:30 or something, and I'd be like, okay, well, that's a sufficient amount of sleep. I wasn't awake during any of that time. I generally fall asleep the second my head hits the pillow. I was like, well, I wasn't really, I don't remember waking up. I just, whatever. I got 7.5 hours of sleep. Well, that's not really true. That wasn't really true. I was really getting more like 6 hours during that time. And, so after I got this thing and I started monitoring my sleep, I started listening to podcasts about sleep and stuff like that and getting all these little clues about what I was doing that was wrong. First of all, like, this just changed everything. I'm sorry. I didn't really think about this before making this video. It's not like laid out perfectly. Nothing on this channel is. I apologize, but I'm going to try to remember everything I wanted to say. Like, I was doing really dumb things, like doing stressful things a few hours before I would go to sleep. Like, I would check my work email and stuff, like right before bed. Or Matt would get into bed, and we've stopped doing this, thank God. Matt would like get into bed with me when I was going to bed, and then we would lay there and talk for like 30 minutes or 45 minutes. And often he goes to bed way later than me. He'd be like thinking about, I don't know, he would bring up stuff. We would start talking about like world events or something like that. We have intentionally stopped doing that. Like, we don't talk about anything right before bed that could be remotely stressful. I have restrained myself from checking any kind of stressful email within like 2 or 3 hours of bed. So, and also there are other things like, it measures heart rate variability, which is, related to stress. I mean, this thing, you have it on all day. It monitors everything all day. Your resting heart rate while you're sleeping, your heart rate variability, these things, it's so obvious to me now. Like, if I have a stressful event that happens early in the day, especially if it's like if I get in a fight with Matt or something like that, that's a big one for me. Or if something like really stressful happens at work that is like the perfect mixture of things, like it's my fault and it might cause a financial, like if those things happen, my perception before was, that happened at noon. I've moved past it. By the time I go to bed or whatever, it's behind me. No. These events affect my sleep that night. Every time. To a huge degree. And seeing this data in front of me has just, it's awakened me to how important it is to minimize the number of times you have something like that happen in your life. I don't know why this has made me able to deal with those, with typical events, that you can't necessarily foresee in a better way, but it has. It's like being aware that reacting really strongly to something, having like an overreaction to something, being aware that that is not just like some irrelevant, benign thing that's happening, has changed it. It's changed my reaction to things. Like, is this worth having a horrible night of sleep tonight and waking up tomorrow and having just sort of like a zombie day? Is this worth that? Is this worth affecting my body that way? I don't know. It's minimized the number of times that I allow myself to have that kind of a reaction to something, or that I allow myself to go there. And hand in hand with that, it has also, I can sort of see patterns in these markers, these stress markers. And I can say, you know what? I was really thinking a lot last week about this problem all week. And look, it affected me physically. I mean, we know these things. It's not like I didn't already know that. But when you can't actually see that it is actually happening to you, you can see that it is actually affecting your nervous system. I don't know, that it really woke me up to the importance of resolving problems, or at least not dwelling on them, in a way that I hadn't been awakened to it before. It's just sort of like this abstract concept, like you should do this thing, you should approach life this way. But it couldn't be felt in a real way for me, or it couldn't be acted on in a real way for me until I saw what it was actually doing. This is just huge. So, yeah, another thing I started doing was, by the way, this also resolved another problem that I had talked about, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 videos ago on here. I made this video about how you're doing fine. And you know what I mean? I was in it, I was saying, God, I like really kind of berate myself for the fact that I don't wear my Invisalign retainers enough. Often I'm just like too tired to go through the whole process of cleaning my teeth to the point that I'm comfortable putting a retainer in and then sleeping with it and cleaning the retainer to the point, you know, I'm just like, God, this is just too much. This magically resolved that problem also. I just spit all over my phone. This magically resolved that problem also. Because I started taking, I always take a hot shower at night just to like relax. And I started taking that right before bed instead of a couple hours before bed. And so I started doing this whole Invisalign teeth thing before that, because like the shower was like, is like literally get out of the shower, cover myself in lotion and get in bed. That's what I do now, because that also is supposed to help your deep sleep. Taking like a really hot bath or a hot shower in my case right before bed helps lower your core body temperature, which helps you get right into a better sleep. Now, since I'm doing that stuff earlier, it's just a different experience. It's just a different, I don't know. It was just, I was too tired to do it. That's it. And for whatever reason, shifting that back like a half hour, which just did not occur to me for some reason. It didn't occur to me not to do that last thing, because I was like, well, if I'm eating and drinking, or, you know, if I have a diet Sprite or something, I can't then, you know, I can't brush my teeth and then drink anything. So I don't want to do it until like last thing. It didn't occur to me that just moving that back like a half an hour would solve the whole problem. That was discovered accidentally, magically, by switching around my showering schedule, which was thanks to learning about sleep, which was thanks to the Fitbit, which was thanks to Matt, which was thanks to, you know, whatever. It's like the bridge of incidents, the little bridge of incidents leads to all these things resolving themselves. And now I wear my Invisalign retainers every night with no problem. And my teeth have moved back into their perfect state. So that problem also resolved itself. But really overall, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because, you know, everybody is in this manifestation community trying to improve all these things in their life. And there are these big things sitting there that you're probably not even seeing. And if you are getting shit for sleep, your whole life is sucking in a way it doesn't need to suck. It is so clear to me now what is due to just getting a shitty night of sleep. You know, before I was like having a bad day, or I was, you know, not feeling energetic or something, and I was just saying, man, what is your problem? Go do XYZ. No, I'm too tired. I just don't feel like it. God, you know, you're so lazy. You know, just like I was having all these, drawing all these conclusions about my performance during the day. And I didn't even realize this is because I got the shittiest night of sleep ever. I wouldn't even know it. Now I know it. If I'm like, man, I'm really tired. What happened last night? I look and I'm like, oh, okay. My heart rate variability was super, super low. That's a sign of stress. Okay, I was stressed out. Why? Oh yeah, like I had a stressful night last night, or I was thinking about this thing last night. Like the worst night of sleep that I had, the worst thing for this heart rate variability, which the lower it is, the worse it is. Heart rate variability is basically like if your heart beats 60 times in a minute, it doesn't beat once per second. There's a variability in there. It beats once, and then there's you know, the higher the variability, the better. I don't know why that is, but that is the way it is. The night that I had the worst variability, my brother had texted me as I was laying in bed trying to go to sleep, telling me that he had to put his dog down the next morning at 7 a.m. And I barely even talked to him about it. I don't know why he texted me. I think his girlfriend was like having a meltdown. And it just kind of got me thinking about when I put my cat down in 2017, how sad that was. And I was like, don't think about this. Don't think about this. Not right before bed. It didn't. It was too late. I had the worst stress night of sleep of my life that night, of my Fitbit life that night. And so, yeah, I'll find myself having a day where I can't really figure out, why am I dragging so much? Why I got enough, I was in bed for 8 hours. I look at this thing and there it all is in black and white. You had a stressful night of sleep. It also measures your body temperature, your skin temperature. It measures your heart rate throughout sleep versus your typical resting heart rate. Your resting heart rate when you're sleeping should be lower than your resting heart rate when you're awake. And if it's not, that's, a sign of stress. All these things, and it'll be right there in black and white. I'm just like, okay, it's not that I need to force myself to do something today in a disciplined way. This isn't a discipline problem that I'm having today. This is a stress problem and a sleep problem. Everything has improved so much since you know what I mean? It's shifted everything. And, I just can't, if you can afford to get one of these things, I think they're around $100. I don't know. I would do everything I could to see how you're sleeping and stop doing the things that are making you sleep poorly. Start doing the things that make you sleep better, and you will see. Last night, the reason I'm making this is, last night I got an amazing night of sleep. I was just looking at the stats because I feel so good. And, it's just amazing. It's like your mood is just so much better. Like, I'm in such a good mood today. Immediately, it's 8:12 a.m. I've been up since 6, and it's so noticeable. The difference is so noticeable. Just the alertness, and you can just feel the mood. Like when you get a lot of REM sleep, that's the part that's like really good for your mood. So like if you're doing things that suppress your REM sleep, it's going to affect your mood throughout the day. So if like you're a big pot smoker, that suppresses REM sleep. If you do that before bed, a lot of people smoke pot right before bed. That is so bad. And then you quit smoking pot and you have all these crazy dreams. That's why, because you get this flood of REM sleep. If you've ever wondered why that happens, I'm not a pot smoker, but I seem to always be intimately involved with somebody who is. That's why that happens. If you drink before bed, it does that. I was really surprised because I was under the impression that taking, I guess, some sleep aids also really suppress your sleep. I was thinking, I used to take Benadryl occasionally, just if I was like tired and I hadn't got enough, as I've been going through this, I've been realizing that I've always kind of had these patterns with sleeping where I would get not enough sleep, generally because I wanted to get up and do something for work. I would get like, short amount. And then I would be like, all right, I'm due. I gotta sleep like 12 hours tonight. And I would take like one Benadryl, which is like half the dosage. I would take a Benadryl just to kind of knock me out and get the whole party started, and to make sure I stayed asleep in the beginning. And I thought that was really bad. And it turns out it's really not, actually. I was like, Benadryl makes you toss and turn. That was my impression from earlier sleep monitoring, and that's not the case for me. It's actually, I try not to take anything all the time, but I take a Benadryl here and there. That's like ensures just getting 10 hours of sleep, and usually it's pretty good sleep. But other sleep aids, I guess, are bad. I don't have any experience with any like prescription sleep drugs, but there's a guy named Matthew Walker who is like a sleep expert professor at UC Berkeley. He's done podcasts on different people like Joe Rogan and people like that. So you might want to listen to those. That was where I kind of started getting really interested in this after I started monitoring my sleep. But it's so important. Doing like, I've talked about how I go through phases with this. I haven't done this in a long time, even since I've been monitoring my sleep, but doing yoga nidra, which is basically just a guided meditation, relaxing all of the parts of your body, which is really, I love it. It's really a blissful thing for me. that can really help with your sleep if you do that, you know, earlier in the evening, stuff like that. Meditation really helps with sleep. So I cannot stress this enough, how big of a difference this has made. It's also, to tie this back in with my intention, it has also made it abundantly clear how different the food I want on days when I didn't get enough sleep is from the food I want on a day like today. If I don't get enough sleep, man, the urge to eat candy and stuff is just like out of control. I got like no sleep the last 2 nights before this. I ate like an entire bag of Tootsie Rolls over the last 2 days. I had it at my desk. I just was eating Snickers bars. Like, it was just candy all day. And I'm about to go into the gym right now. No urge to buy a Snickers bar from the vending machine. I'm that person who's at the gym and eats a Snickers bar before working out lately. But anyway, so this is like really, 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 really important. It's a really important human function. And this idea that manifesting makes you somehow able to easily and immediately just rise above everything having to do with your physical body, which seems to be being pushed. And if you don't subscribe to that, there's like some shaming that comes into it, ridicule. This is such a load of shit. Get a Fitbit and see how your sleep is going. Adjust it until you start hitting like an 85 or a 90 every day on your sleep score out of 100, and see if you don't totally agree. I mean, it's huge. All these dissatisfactions you have with your life, like, try taking care of your physical body, this vehicle that you're experiencing all of this through. Take care of that a little bit before you make any real decisions or conclusions about what's going on in your life. You know what I mean? Like, you're seeing this whole thing through this body, and if you're feeding it garbage and you're not getting enough rest or the kind of rest that you need, and you're taking a bunch of pills all the time or doing a bunch of drugs all the time, I mean, come on. I don't know. I don't do almost anything. I don't take almost anything. Sugar is about the only drug that I regularly engage in. But so that was amazing. And that was why I wanted to make this video. But since I'm already talking and it's 32 minutes long, let me just tell you how this has changed everything for me when it comes to exercise. Because this is the craziest thing for me. In 2018, as anybody who's watched this channel knows, I had a big mental shift where I stopped thinking that I was cursed to always weigh 195 pounds. I'm 5'3", so that was pretty chunky for me. I realized that I had been believing that I was kind of cursed with that maybe I was always meant to struggle with that, and I changed my mind about that and realized, no, I'm a really successful person actually in the rest of my life, and this is the thing that doesn't make sense. You know, not the rest of this stuff. I should be in ideal physical shape. I'm in ideal financial shape. You know, I'm a major success. It makes no sense that this other thing that just requires discipline and you know, right thinking and all that stuff, at least in terms of accomplishing the goal, that's something that I should be successful at too. The second I had that sort of realization, it was on. It was just a matter of time until I had achieved that goal. But during that time, I dieted, and which was basically just whatever I felt like eating, but I just restricted it to a certain amount of calories, which self-corrected over time. As I got hungrier, I started eating foods that were better and more fulfilling because I was hardcore disciplined about the calorie limit. I didn't go over it very often, and you can only eat so much junk food for so long before you say, man, I really want some meat today, and I'm gonna have to not have that candy bar if I want to have that, whatever, chicken. So that regulated itself. That's another story for another time. But what I did do was I walked like 6 miles a day, and I went to the gym and did like, I don't know, probably a half hour to an hour and a half of cardio. Like every day I was doing all of this exercise. So once I got the Fitbit and it started tracking my heart rate all day, and so I started trusting it when it was telling me how many calories I was burning, because it knows my age, it knows my height, it knows my weight, and it's monitoring me all day. I figured this has got to be pretty close. It's got to be pretty close, like within like 10%, maybe 20. I was just like, okay, I'm going to trust this a little bit. I started a long time ago, I stopped walking because when I was monitoring my heart rate while walking, it rarely gets above like 100. So I was like, this is not effective. This is not burning any calories. This is not really doing anything for me. This is a great stress reliever and I love going for a walk. But, you know, now that I don't weigh 190, it's really not hard for me anymore. So I'm not like, it's not cardiovascularly effective. So I'm going to stop doing it and I'm going to start focusing on cardio machines where I can monitor my heart rate and get it up to like 150 where it needs to be. So what I learned from wearing the Fitbit while doing this was that if I would go do an hour of cardio, which would burn, you know, a moderate amount of calories for me, what then happened was I would, unwittingly just kind of sit around for the rest of the day. I never really noticed this, but I don't know if it was because I thought, hey, you did a big workout, you're good, just chill for the rest of the day, or if just because I automatically didn't have any energy. I don't know what it was, but doing like cardio like that was almost like doing nothing. It was comparable to just a regular day for me where I wasn't worn out, because when I wasn't doing a bunch of cardio, when I wasn't doing an hour of cardio at noon, I would do other stuff. I would do like stuff around my office, like, you know, rearrange the office, clean stuff up, the stuff that needs to be, you know, done when you have a physical business with physical products. I would just like move stuff around, get stuff ready for shipments coming in. I would just do all this active stuff at work. And it was really disappointing to see that basically the cardio day and the regular day was almost the same calorie burn. I was just like, oh my God, I was totally not aware of this. I thought the days that I was doing this cardio were, I thought these days were like the ones that mattered, when really it was just the same. It was really only the dieting that was doing stuff. And so I stopped doing that because I was like, well, screw it. I see now that like cardio, intense cardio, that's for health. That doesn't need to be done more than a couple times a week to maintain my current level of cardio fitness, which is really high from doing all that stuff for so long. So I just need to do this a couple times a week. The rest of the time, I'm just going to have to diet or something. But so I was like, well, I want to go for a walk because I like going for a walk. I like going to the gym. It's just kind of a meditative, stress relieving thing for me. And it's good for you to walk. My bone density is insane. I will never have osteoporosis. My bone density is like twice as high as the average person my age. That's from all the walking. Walking does that. Any kind of weight-bearing exercise is great for your bone density. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to go for a walk, to de-stress, because I like to listen to stuff on YouTube. I like to listen to Tim Grimes' podcast, link below. I like to listen to Cecilia Hendrix's podcast, link below. And other people like the Pop Psych channel, some other psychologists and stuff that comment on reality TV. I just like listening to that shit. The Pre-Modernist is has a great YouTube channel, but only like 20 videos or something. Talks about history. He's great. Anyway, I just like doing it. It's like what I like to do. It's like a healthy thing for me. And so I figured out, thanks to the Fitbit, the sun is really annoying me right now. I figured out, thanks to the Fitbit, that walking for me is something I can pretty much do endlessly. And it's not irrelevant from a calorie burn standpoint. It's actually quite relevant. It's just like I can do it for 3 hours a day and I enjoy it. And I don't know. I kind of stumbled on this with the Fitbit. You know, one day I walked for probably I did like 6 miles or something. And at the end of the day, my calorie burn, because that was on top of my regular sort of active day, the calorie burn was like through the roof. It was like almost 3,000. And I was like, if this is even off by, 20%, that's still amazing, because I didn't do any cardio. It didn't make me want to eat anything. I just sort of had this chill day, and I feel great, and I'm not worn out at all. I don't even feel like I did anything today, because I didn't really push myself. And that's what I've been doing ever since the first day I discovered that. And it's pretty obvious to me that this is a lifestyle thing for me. It's just sort of something that I wanted to do anyway, that I'll continue to do forever. And this has kind of solved every issue for me. I don't even really have to think about what I eat anymore, because I'm exercising. I'm active to the point that I'm just burning everything off. And I don't even want food to the point that it would touch how much I'm burning off. I have lost 11 pounds. Without even, it's like, I almost can't believe this. It's been so effortless. I don't know. It's like that night that I was listening to Abe Hicks, that little mental shift that started this whole thing. That's basically what she was saying. They were talking about almost the exact same problem that I was having. They were like, I did this thing in the past. It was really successful, but I just don't feel like it really works anymore. And she was like, well, that's because, you drove up in this car, and now you're supposed to get out of that car and get in this one to drive forward. For whatever reason, I was like, yeah, I'm like trying to do this. And I made videos about this like a year ago. There's a video called Are You a Fly Buzzing Against the Glass? This idea that you know the way somewhere and it's worked for you in the past. It's really hard to get past that and be like, no, there's another way forward to basically do the same thing, but in a different, better way. I don't know. It just took me all the way until that night to just say, okay, I'm ready to let it go. I'm ready to fully let go of the idea that I have to do this in some way that I don't want to do it. That's creating this resistance that's creating no forward motion. That was the night that this whole thing started. And that was basically what she was saying. There's going to be a way forward for you that is easier, that is effortless. And it just sort of magically turned into that. For me, it very much feels almost like magic. So that's how that changed the thing with the food and diet and exercise. That's the portion of that manifestation that was improved by this weird Fitbit manifestation. It just kind of manifested in my life via Matt for my birthday. So anyway, yeah, I'm really kind of amazed at how this thing that we do for a third of our lives is just kind of seems like it's not really that big of a deal to most people. And that's why I wanted to make this video. Not to talk about the food stuff, but to talk about the sleep stuff. Because, it's also affected me with the food stuff. Because I'll wake up and I won't want to do anything. I won't want to go to the gym. Or I have all these, impulses to eat garbage. And now I realize that's not a moral failing. It's actually a physical thing a lot of the time. Which has helped me to be easier on myself, which is really, that's really the objective with a lot of this stuff. I assume there's something in here for you. And if you made it this far, if you even watched any of this video and then left, you will never hear what I'm about to say. But this kind of thing, stumbling on a video like this, hearing somebody say this stuff, you're not seeing this by accident. You were supposed to see this. there aren't any accidents. And I was supposed to make this video to tell you that you need to start thinking about your sleep. So if you saw it, take it to heart. It could be the solution to 50% of what you have going on now. I doubt it's going to be the solution to 100% of what you have going on. But if you have a problem that you're not even aware of that is affecting your life to the degree even where it's placing a 20% burden on you, removing that will be like a night and day difference. I hope that you are able to obtain this object. It's about to be Christmas. Maybe you couldn't think of something for somebody to get you. Here it is. I think I have the Inspire, the latest Inspire. Make sure you get the one that gives you a sleep score. It also gives you a readiness score. So based on your recent sleep patterns, your recent activity, and other stress measurements, every day when you wake up, it gives you a score, and it'll say, your score today is 10. Just take it easy today. Which is funny because a lot of the time I'm like, that's crazy. There's been a lot of days where it'll be like, your readiness is on the floor. And I'm just like, I feel fine, Fitbit. And then at noon, I'm like, my head's on the desk. I'm just like, oh my God, it was right. It tells you that. It's just really cool to me. It's like, it kind of takes some of the personal responsibility for yourself off of you and gives it to an AI. We're in the future, y'all. So anyway, I hope this helps somebody. You know what? I know that it did. I know that this helped somebody. Have a great day.